What's up, guys? Sleepy Picks here. Crazy first day of basketball. We'll recap the entire first day and look at some of these second round matchups. I also have a new contributor that's going to join us. Let's get to the first game. And today, guys, I'm joined with a new contributor, the Joker. He's got a lot of basketball knowledge, so I thought it would be great to have him on. First game we're going to talk about is the number one seeded Duke Blue Devils taking on the number nine seeded TCU Horned Frogs. And I don't know if you guys watched the Duke Siena game, but it was just a classic. And, admittedly so, I'm actually a big Siena fan. I grew up in that area, so I know the team pretty well. I remember them back during the Fran McCaffrey days. They haven't been to the tournament since 2010, and I was really hoping that they wouldn't embarrass themselves today. So they played an amazing game. Jerry McNamara really has done a great job getting this team back into the dance and back to a high level. The one problem that they ran into was they had five guys on the team, and that was it. They did not put another guy in the whole game. So by the end of the game, last 5 minutes, these guys were just running on fumes. And one thing that I really like to see, the Boozers really led this Duke effort. It was an extremely slow start for Duke. Defensively, they really struggled. Shire was throwing all different types of defensive looks at Siena. Siena was able to just kind of do what they wanted in the first half. They led 43-32. They were getting some shots down low. Then Shire changed a little bit to a zone. Siena started making some threes. But really a really good effort from Siena here. And Duke able to survive and advance. That's what March is all about. The next game was TCU beating Ohio State. And this game was also, we talked about this game in the preview, and I said this game would not be interesting until the last 2 or 3 minutes of the game. And that's exactly what happened. TCU had a 14-point lead. Ohio State was able to cut it to where they were leading. And just a nice back and forth. You had Xavier Edmonds making that shot with 4 seconds to go, and TCU able to survive. They now take on the Duke Blue Devils. This is going to be a really exciting matchup. Joker, before we even get into the breakdown of this game, do you have any comments on the first two games, Siena Duke or TCU Ohio State?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Yeah, that Siena game, like you said, was very, very impressive for five guys who are going to give it their all. Don't even from sad. It's no surprise. I think that zone, like you said, kind of ate Siena up late, forced a couple costly turnovers. There's a couple points in the game. I thought one of the big turning points of the game is where Mulvey kind of missed that, we'll say, open dunk, and then Folafach on the putback also missed that. That could have put Duke up 15, Siena up 15, and then Duke comes right down, transition, cuts the lead to 11 there. I think that was kind of the turning point in the game. But, hats off to the Saints. Great season. Jerry really did a great job with, we'll say, limited resources there at Siena. And to touch on that TCU Ohio State game, like you said, all you had to do was watch the last 5 minutes. Really, really exciting game at the end. Mobley, for Ohio State, as long as he was open, he was going to knock it down. But I think the best team won in TCU, and I'm looking forward to this Duke TCU matchup.
Yeah, so getting into this matchup here, we have Duke. Obviously, one thing that I always say is you never want to wake a sleeping giant, right? And here I feel like Duke is now focused. John Shire is getting on them about this performance, barely even showing up in the first half. This is going to be an extra human effort. I think the first half is going to be like Duke by 15 points. I think they're going to come out like a house on fire and just run through this TCU team. Now, TCU's got some athletes, and they've definitely pushed some higher level teams as well. Let's not forget they've gone through the gauntlet of the Big 12 schedule and maintained a winning record. Joker, before I give my pick, what do you want to say about this matchup?
I think this one's going to come down to really who wants it more. I mean, Duke obviously came out pretty flat today. I don't think it can be understated, too, with not having Caleb Foster and Patrick Gongba, two crucial starters there. I think, like you said, really leaning on the Boozers is going to win them this game. Obviously, free throw shooting is going to be important. Cameron Boozer getting to the line. I really think he's going to have whatever he wants in this matchup. I don't know if TCU is the strongest on the inside. So I look for Cam Boozer to have another big game. Obviously, Caden Boozer moving the ball around well. They're really going to need some offense, too, from Dame Sarr. I think Kemenya's really got to step up. They look to him. He was a pretty highly touted freshman coming in. Hasn't had the year that he wanted, but I think he's going to have a big game for them to advance. TCU, like you said, playing in that Big 12 schedule, they're going to wear you down on defense. So look for Duke to kind of move that ball around, get it inside, and kind of get the open looks on the wings if it's possible.
Yeah, TCU only putting up 66 points today, so obviously that's a little bit concerning. I think you're going to have to do a little bit more to match this Duke team. TCU has the number 82 ranked offense, the number 28 ranked defense. They don't shoot the three well. They're about 208 in the nation, 201 in 2-point percentage. So I think that's where we're gonna find they're gonna struggle a little bit. My pick's gonna be Duke. I think Duke's gonna win this big, honestly, guys. And I think people are gonna look at this and be like, oh, this TCU team just won a grinded out game against a tough Ohio State team. Maybe they can challenge this Duke team, but this is a Duke team with some top athletes. John Shire with the number one recruited freshman class. So this is a very strong Duke team, and I don't think they have back-to-back sleepers here. They're going to be awake. They're going to be ready to go. I'm going to say Duke wins this by, I'll say 18 points. Joker, what do you think?
I tend to agree, too. I think Shire is going to have, the boys coming out firing. I think there was a lot to be desired in that first half today against Siena. Like I said, playing a 16 seed, it might have been a little bit of a look ahead, to be honest. But I really think he's going to have them ready, too. And I like them to be up double digits at half, and I like them to finish it off probably at least by 15 and to probably cover that spread as well.
All right, great. Let's move on to the next game. And our next game is the number 6 seeded Louisville Cardinals taking on the number 3 seeded Michigan State Spartans. We'll talk about Michigan State first, guys. They are able to take out North Dakota State 92-67. This game was never really close. We know how good Tom Izzo is in the first round. We kind of saw a lot of that today. Not really much more that I want to say about that. I do want to talk about the Louisville South Florida game, and this was disappointing for me. I picked South Florida. I know they were the popular pick for everyone. Everyone's always picking that 11 seed over the 6 seed. And South Florida was a popular pick for me. And they just did not start out well. I think there were clear nerves. This is a South Florida team that loves to run. They love to play fast. They love to play these 80-point, 90-point games. Well, they had 27 points in the first half. So that's just not going to get it done. Louisville was able to get out to a 22-point lead in the middle of the second half, and South Florida was able to cut that to 4. So they had the power to do that, to play with this Louisville team. Now, a lot of this was Louisville just not being able to close out a team like this, and that's something that really does make me nervous. Especially if they go up big on a Michigan State team, and we've seen this all season, if they go up big on a team like this, no lead is safe. And honestly, that kind of seems to be like the theme of today as well. We just talked about TCU having that 14-point lead, winning the game, but losing the lead. And we'll talk a little bit about a few other teams that it was also a very similar situation. But congratulations to Louisville. Pat Kelsey gets his first win in the NCAA tournament. Louisville's still going to be without Michael Brown, so that's going to be a little bit of a concern. If they do win this game, he'll be reevaluated for next weekend. With him in the lineup, they are a much more lethal offense. Joker, talk to me a little bit about these games. I mean, I know we don't really have much to say about that Michigan State game, but talk to me about both these games.
Yeah, like you said, South Florida was also, we'll say, the trendy upset pick for me. Like you said, 27 points for a team that averages, close to 80, 85 points a game. It's not going to get it done. 5 for 33 from the three-point range, 15% is just not going to win you the game. Yes, they lost by 4, but a couple of those go down. I think we're looking at a different game. Wes Ennis, usually their lethal three-point shooter, 0 of 11 today from three-point range. Joseph Pinion, 5 of 14. Those guys have been knocking down shots at a high clip all year, just could not get it done today. Louisville Cardinal, obviously them, they're built with a lot of transfers from the portal, a lot of proven guys. Conwell's a great player, lethal shooter. Same thing with McNeely. Hadley's also, played for Colorado. He's been tested as well. But I'm just not so sure that this team is built to come from behind, and they just cannot close out a game late. We've seen it all year long. These guys, yes, like I said, battle-tested, but I just don't think they're built to come from behind. Without Michael Brown, they really lack a true playmaker, someone to really move that ball around. Conwell's kind of, your off-ball guard, your shooter, and they just are not having that same ball movement. You saw it today. I mean, in my opinion, they got lucky to win, but, hats off to the Cardinal. They did enough to pull it off, but if they do this again and Brown is not able to play, I just don't see them getting past a tough Michigan State team, especially a team who also guards the perimeter very well.
Yeah, I agree. And, previewing this match here, we'll talk a little bit more about it. We have Michigan State coming in. They are the number 27 offense, the number 16 defense. They are 9-6 in quad one matchups. This is just a very strong team. And, guys, again, we talked about how Izzo lost all of his double-digit scorers from last year, and he's able to get a team back. They're a number 3 seeded team. They were top 15-5 in the Big Ten Conference. He's able to always get the best out of his players, and I can't see a path to victory for Louisville. I just feel like this Michigan State team plays solid defense. They're going to be out rebounding Louisville. To me, they just play better basketball. And I'm going to go with Michigan State. I think they're going to win probably by 8 points, maybe double digits. I don't think this game, I think it's going to be Michigan State getting out early and kind of just holding that lead off on Louisville. I don't see a path to victory. Joker, talk to me about Louisville. How would they be able to beat a Michigan State team of this caliber?
I think the clear path for Louisville to win this game is to be able to knock down the three. I mean, they shot over 50% today, but, it's going to be tough against a Michigan State team who guards the perimeter very well. Lacking a true, on-ball guard to distribute, they got to get out and they got to make a lot of these transition shots. Conwell's going to throw up his, 14 to 20 shots a game. McNeely, same thing. They're going to, throw it up. They really got to get the ball inside and also look on the outside for those threes, and especially in transition. That's the only way they're going to win. Like you said, Michigan State should have the edge on the boards with Carson Cooper, Cohen Carr, Jackson Kohler. They should be out rebounding, Zubris and Sananda down low. I expect Jackson Kohler and Carson Cooper to have pretty much whatever they want there. So, truthfully, I want to say Louisville Cardinals have a chance, but I just don't see a clear path for them to win this game.
Okay, and you're picking Michigan State. How much do you think they're going to win by?
I am going to pick Michigan State. I do think they're going to get out to, a fast start. As long as they can rebound, stay, defensively solid. Louisville, again, is one of those teams who commits, quite a bit of fouls during the game, and they're one of the highest foul teams in the nation. And Michigan State's one of the best free throw shooting teams in the country. So, if they can, knock down the free throws, stay defensively solid, and play from the inside out, I think Michigan State's going to win by double digits here.
All right, let's move on to our next game. Next game, we have the number 4 seeded Arkansas Razorbacks taking on the number 12 seeded High Point Panthers. Arkansas able to get through Hawaii 97-78. Not much of a matchup here. I did talk about how I liked the size and potential 3-point defense of Hawaii, and that neither of those things really bothered Arkansas at all. Their athleticism and their speed was just too much. I mean, Arkansas able to put up 97 points on this team. Not much defense being played here. They move on, and they're going to take on the number 12 seeded High Point Panthers, who were able to upset the number 5 seeded Wisconsin Badgers. And this was a back-and-forth game. Wisconsin able to get out to an early lead, and High Point able to come back. A lot a lot of clean 3-point shooting from High Point, and they take the most shots in the nation. And we saw that today, 40 plus 3-point shots taken. It's very similar to what we talked about with Miami of Ohio, where it's kind of like we're not gonna dive into the way that you play. We're just gonna play our game. If we win, great. If we lose, we did our best playing our game. And that's something that I really like. Now, one thing that I want to note here, and Joker, we'll talk a little bit about this. We'll talk about the games first, but I want to note this in the press conference. Flynn Clayman, the coach of High Point, talked about the mid-major dilemma of how teams like High Point and Miami of Ohio are notching these big wins over Quad 1 teams, but no one will play them in the regular season. And this is a problem that we've had for the last like 5 or 6 years, where there's no benefit for these major teams to play a team like High Point. If a team like Wisconsin plays them in the regular season, it looks like a bad loss. Like, yes, this High Point team has only 3 or 4 losses on their record, but it still doesn't look good losing to a team like High Point. So there's a lot of back and forth here. I like that he's talking about it. I like that he's bringing it to the forefront of the national stage here, that it's something that needs to be addressed. They have to figure out a way to get some of these teams in. They do a lot of these like preseason tournaments that these teams could become a part of, and maybe start to see some of these other big name teams. But anyways, Joker, talk to me about the Arkansas Hawaii game and the High Point Wisconsin game. What did you see there? What did you like? And were you entertained by either one?
Starting off with Arkansas against Hawaii, I think they looked great. I mean, Calipari's got these boys playing, the best basketball at the right time. I mean, in my opinion, Darius Acuff is the best player in the country. Should be number 1 pick in the draft come June. Love what that young man does for that team, and they're just playing together, and they're knocking down shots. Which Calipari team knocking down shots this late in the season, big trouble for everybody else. Hawaii, they were a trendy pick for some that I talked to, but Arkansas, just playing too well at this stage of the game. Winning the SEC, I really like them to do to do what they're doing now and win, quite a bit and go deep. In that other game, like you mentioned, High Point really pulling off a fantastic win against Wisconsin. I thought Wisconsin was coming on at the right time, but again, the Badgers let us down in the first round. High Point really, fun team to watch. They really are. I mean, they'll run and go with everybody, shoot the three, to almost to nauseum. I think, like you said, 40 shots today. But to that point about playing mid-majors, there's really just no incentive for example, a team like Arkansas to schedule a High Point on their schedule, especially in the beginning of the year. I mean, obviously, Arkansas has everything to lose, High Point everything to gain. So to really make that change and to kind of get those Quad 1 teams to play them, to your point, I'm not sure. Maybe they, in the Maui Invitational, you take a couple, Quad 1, 2 teams out, and maybe you invite some of these mid-major teams in Miami, Ohio, a High Point, to see, how they can stack up early in the season against the big boys. Maybe a Kansas, maybe a UConn. I'm not sure, but that's really the only way that I think you're going to get the notoriety for these mid-major teams going forward.
Yeah, and it is disappointing. I mean, I don't know if you remember, Joker, they used to have what was called bracket busters, I think. You remember? And it was like the top mid-major schools. But it was kind of like they were allowing the mid-major schools to like cannibalize themselves. So you'd have like Butler beating Siena, and they'd be like the 2 top ones. And then when push came to shove, when they were making the bubble decisions, and they're like, well, Siena's got 1 extra loss now. And it would always happen mid-season. But yeah, I think something like that. I mean, even something with having like a bracket buster type thing again, where you can have some of the top mid-majors playing each other. I was really excited. I always loved that, having some of the top mid-major teams playing each other. But I agree, they got to figure something out. Looking at this matchup here, we have a High Point team that is going to take a ton of shots. They took 74 shots from the field, 40 shots from 3. And, that's something that their coach is honest about. He's like, we're going to do this. We are going to take, they are not going to come out here and take under 100 shots. So whether these shots fall or not is going to depend on whether they win or lose by, 10, 15, 20 points here. This Arkansas team is much more athletic than the Wisconsin team that they saw. Not to mention, this Arkansas team has the number 4 offense in the nation. So you want to talk about someone that can match your offensive potential, it's going to be Arkansas. This is much different than Wisconsin. Arkansas also has the number 48 defense in the nation. They are 8-8 in quad 1 games, which is slightly below High Point. They're only 1-0 in quad 1 games. So High Point with a better record, but Arkansas, I think they're gonna come out. I honestly think the first half is actually gonna be close. I feel like this High Point team, for sure, they just beat their first quad 1 team. I love what Klayman is saying. We heard him in the locker room. He's got a great way of just getting these guys to rally, and I think that's what we're going to see. I think they're going to be very motivated here. I think they're going to come out. They're going to start to hit some of their shots, but I think Arkansas at the end of the day is going to throw a couple haymakers that High Point is not going to have any response for. So give me Arkansas. I'm going to say they're going to win by 12 points. Joker, where are you going?
Yeah, I'm also going to stay on the Arkansas train, too. I think, like you said, this game is going to be a little bit closer than people think early. High Point coming out fast, running, gunning, with shooting the threes, looking for their shot in transition. I think they're going to keep it close in the first half. I don't think Arkansas is going to be able to pull away. Obviously, Arkansas, much more athletic team, much bigger team. The length of some of these guys, Trayvon Brazile, guarding the perimeter, as their, we'll say, makeshift 5. Malik Thomas, Billy Richmond, also pretty long for, guards and small forwards. So I think as the game goes on, I think Arkansas is going to wear down High Point. I mean, if those shots are not falling for High Point, I think Arkansas is going to be able to get whatever they want. Acuff, I don't see anybody on that High Point roster. I didn't see anybody on that High Point, game today that is going to be able to stop Darius Acuff doing what he does best. Being a floor general, hitting the open shot, also finding guys in transition. I like Arkansas to pull away late here. I'm going to say Arkansas by 10.
All right, let's move on to the next game. Next game, we have the number 5 seeded Vanderbilt Commodores playing the number 4 seeded Nebraska Cornhuskers. This is definitely going to be a fun matchup here. We have Nebraska getting through against Troy, and we talked about how Nebraska loves to play against that adversity, and they had never won until today. They had never won an NCAA tournament game. So finally the program can breathe a sigh of relief here. They get that win, and they get it in ecstatic fashion. A 76-47 win. Troy, we said, might have been a little bit tricky for Nebraska, but they just didn't let them get into their offense at all. Troy did not look great. They looked a little bit undersized. Nebraska's shooting the ball pretty well. So they now move on. They take on a Vanderbilt team that was able to play a tricky McNeese team, and McNeese had the lead most of the first half. Vanderbilt able to win this game 78-68, but it was a pretty back and forth game in the second half, and McNeese was able to hang with them and hit shot for shot with them, and it was impressive. But the one thing that stood out to me the most was Vanderbilt's shooting numbers here. They were 51% from the field, so they shot pretty well and only got a 10-point win against McNeese, so that might be a little bit concerning. We talked about the pace that McNeese likes to play, and that tempo, it looked like it was upsetting Vanderbilt at first, but they started to kind of settle into it. They were able to get their offense going as well. 38% from the three-point range, 9 for 24 from 3, so pretty good from Vanderbilt. Now they take on Nebraska, and actually, sorry, Joker, first, do you have anything that you want to say about these two games?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just touch on the Nebraska Troy game quick. Really wasn't competitive in my opinion. at all. I know Troy might have been actually an upset pick for quite a few people that I know. Again, trying to be trendy to find anything here, but Nebraska just really overpowered them. Really got whatever they wanted to, especially from three. 14 made threes. Nebraska shot 43s, which is quite a bit, but Troy just couldn't keep up with that. When they're falling, Nebraska's tough to beat. Good win for them. Looking at that other game, Vanderbilt, it did take them a while to settle in. McNeese, tough. They built that program on toughness the last couple of years under Will Wade, really setting the standard. I knew Vanderbilt would get it done late. I think Vanderbilt's a really sneaky good team. They, were one of the best teams in the SEC, all year long. And that game was fun to watch against McNeese, and I think it was a good little wake-up call for Vanderbilt, too. A little adversity in the first half, but it was nice to see them kind of get in their groove and play their game. And Tyler Tanner, I'm a big fan of him. I think he's going to be great at the next level, too. If he comes back for another year at Vanderbilt, I think they're on the preseason short list for champions, in my opinion. But looking forward to this game a lot.
Yeah, and sneaky's definitely a good way to describe this team. Even throughout the season, nobody was really talking about Vanderbilt, but they were a top 25 staple the entire season. So just a really solid team. 27-8 overall, 11-7 in the SEC, and they were able to make the finals of the SEC tournament. Vanderbilt has the number 6 offense in the nation and the number 30 defense. They are 10-7 in their quad 1 games. And guys, this matchup here, I'm very excited about this game. I think Joker's very excited about this game. It's going to be a nice, fast-paced game. And the one thing that Nebraska can do better than almost any team in the nation is they got to take the ball out of your hands. If they're shooting really well, they have a lot of guys that can connect from three, that can kind of shoot some long-range shots. And if they're able to hit those shots, I think it's going to be a tough ask for Vanderbilt to start to match that. But Vanderbilt's athleticism, I think, really does trump Nebraska. And for me, I don't want to take a team. I'm not going to pick a team that, 1 out of 7 or 8 times is going to connect from all these threes and hit. I'm just telling you right now that this is a possibility that could happen. I'm picking Vanderbilt, but I'm telling you, I can see a path where Nebraska can win this game and can actually win it pretty comfortably. But for me, congratulations, Nebraska. You got your first NCAA win. Now you're playing a very tricky Vanderbilt team. I got to pick Vanderbilt. I think Vanderbilt's going to win this game by 6 points. Joker, where are you going?
Yeah, I think this has the potential to be the best second-round game on the board when you look at it. I'm more apt to take a team, like you said, you touched on it great, that's more athletic. Vanderbilt, great athletes. That backcourt of Tyler Tanner and Duke Miles, I really think that backcourt is going to be head and shoulders above the backcourt of Nebraska with Hoiberg and Stanford. From an athleticism standpoint, being able to push the pace, I think Nebraska, if they're definitely a offense that lives and dies by the three. Even Rafe Mass being able to step out and hit the three as well. If those aren't going to fall, I think it's going to be a really tough for Nebraska to come. I just don't think they're built to come from behind. And Vanderbilt, also a great free throw shooting team. They just create and slash. And I really like Tyler Nickel, too, on the wing, being able to knock down the transition threes with Tanner driving and Duke Miles driving. I'm taking Vanderbilt here very close, so I'm going to go Vanderbilt by 3 just to cover the spread.
All right, let's move on to the next game. Our next game is the number 3 Illinois Fighting Illini taking on the number 11 VCU Rams. And let's talk about the Illinois game first, because I think we got a lot to say about that VCU game. Illinois able to get a 105-70 win over UPenn and really just flexing their muscles here. This team was just so much more talented and athletic than the UPenn team. And TJ Power, we saw his 44-point game to beat Yale in the finals of the Ivy League. He follows that up with a 6-point game tonight. The Illinois defense looked okay. Still allowing 70 points to UPenn, not great, but being able to put up those 105 against UPenn. This was a UPenn team that just played no defense all year, and Illinois was able to just get whatever they want. Kind of a nice game to break yourself into the NCAA tournament, get a little bit comfortable, get the tournament jitters out, and now Illinois is going to be taking on a much tougher team in the VCU Rams. And this VCU game, guys, talk about a pull your hair out type game. I picked UNC to win this game, and it looked like it was going to be UNC all the way. North Carolina with a 20-point lead just relaxes a little bit. VCU able to hit a few big shots, and they're able to get the game into overtime where they win 82-78. And this was a very frustrating loss, but it is what we've seen all year from North Carolina. Just not being able to put a team away. And honestly, though, like Joker, it kind of feels like that's the theme of these ACC teams, not being able to put these teams away. We saw it with Louisville. We saw it with UNC. We kind of saw it with Duke against Siena. These teams just seem to let teams back in, and I don't believe that this VCU team is that talented either. I think they're going to get put in their place big time by Illinois. But before we even talk about that matchup, Joker, what did you think about these two games?
Well, I really don't have much to say about the Penn-Illinois game. It really wasn't much of a game at all. I mean, Illinois looks great. They look great all year. This was a good tune-up game for them. In Team Europe, as I like to call Illinois, really just looked dominant. The North Carolina game, I'm just going to say what everybody's thinking. It was a disgrace. North Carolina blowing, a 20-point lead. And I feel like we're in the same spot every year. I mean, Hubert Davis, I don't want to say he was out-coached, but, fails to make the adjustments. I mean, it doesn't help that you lose, your 5-star freshman Caleb Wilson. But I really think this team, in my opinion, North Carolina, probably one of the least talented teams they've had in recent memory. I mean, outside of Caleb Wilson, they brought in Vaysar in the portal, but your primary ball handler is Seth Trimble. I just don't. I don't see it. It wasn't a team that was built for the long haul to win the title this year, and I think it finally caught up to them. I'm not sure where they go from here. I know their recruiting class next year looks good, but, year after year after year, I feel like we're just, watching the same movie with UNC. So hats off to VCU. Should be a good one against Illinois.
Yeah, and looking at this matchup, Illinois just not a great defense, so I kind of feel like VCU is going to be able to hit some shots and maybe stick around for a little bit. But Illinois does have the number 2 offense in the nation, number 24 defense in the nation, so not too shabby there. One thing that I think I brought up in our first breakdown, but I'll bring it up again. The Illinois defense does not produce a lot of turnovers, so that's something that, especially as you start to go deeper into the tournament, you want to get some of those free points, turnovers. You want to get points in transition. So Illinois is 365th in the nation in their defense producing turnovers. So that's something we got to keep an eye on. At some point, that's going to catch up to them. That's the only number. That's the only red flag number that's kind of sticking out to me. Illinois sitting at 7-8 in their quad 1 games, and I don't see this VCU team really challenging them. I think North Carolina, I mean, yeah, like Joker said, like not a very talented team, but they were still much better. Like 3/4 of the game, they were better than this VCU team, and VCU able to find a way back in and get it to overtime. I think this is going to be Illinois. I think it's going to be pretty easy, maybe a close like first 10 minutes, but I'm going to go with Illinois winning by 10 points. Joker, where are you going?
Yeah, this is really the first one where I'm not going to say this game is really going to be close. I think the backcourt of Keaton Wagler and Keelan Boswell is just going to be way too much for VCU in their backcourt. With the Ivicic brothers, Illinois being able to rebound that basketball too, knocking out threes with Murkovic, Stojakovic. I just can't see VCU coming off a huge adrenaline game, probably a big adrenaline dump there going into this game. I don't see how they get up again for this. I think they're going to find themselves down in the first half considerably, and I really like Illinois to run away with this one. I'm going to say Illinois is going to win this game by 17 plus.
Wow, yeah, I think this is going to be a pretty big blowout. And yeah, this tonight we had Merkovich 29 points, Wagler 18 points. These guys, it's just such a well-distributed offense, and I think that's why they found so much success. They were a lot of transfers coming in, so it took them a little bit of time to adjust to each other's game styles. But now we're starting to see them click here. We might want to be aware of this Illinois team as we start to move deeper into the tournament. All right, let's take a look at our next game. Next game, we have the number 2 seeded Houston Cougars taking on the number 10 seeded Texas A&M Aggies. Let's start with Houston first. They get a nice solid win over Idaho. Very convincing. We talked about how this game really wasn't going to be that close. I think I had said Houston by 20 or 25, and that's kind of what happened here. Just a very convincing win over Idaho. Idaho not really able to do anything. That Houston defense looks extremely stifling. The other game that I want to talk about is the Texas A&M St. Mary's game. And guys, yes, I picked St. Mary's, and yes, I was disappointed for the 12th straight year picking St. Mary's. I don't know why I fall for it every single year, but this St. Mary's team they're just not it. They didn't shoot poorly. St. Mary's 43% from 3-point range, 38% from the field. But the big thing that stood out here was 18 turnovers. And guys, if you turn the ball over 18 times, you're not winning anything. You're probably not even beating Idaho. Like, that is just an extremely difficult stat to have, something to fight back from. St. Mary's gets beat by Texas A&M 63-50. Buckyball, maybe it's alive and well, who knows? We're going to see here in the Houston game. But before we talk about that game, Joker, what do you have to say about these two games?
Yeah, really nothing to say about Houston. Idaho really, I guess they put up a fight. It really didn't deserve to be on the same court as Houston. Kelvin Sampson coached team in March. Unbelievable. Houston looks like a dynamo. A&M, I had A&M tonight. I really think A&M could be a sleeper team. St. Mary's, I expected a little bit more, but, when they play in that conference, they're not really battle-tested. But also, 18 turnovers in that game for a Randy Bennett coach team, just not going to get it done. You just don't see that very often. And they just were not hitting anything. Their best player, Morauskas, didn't start the game, came in sparingly, was just not the same. St. Mary's just ran out of gas, quite frankly. And I had A&M, so I'm happy about that. Now, next round, we'll see.
That's a little teaser. All right. Before I get to his pick, we have the number 2 Houston going against the number 10 Texas A&M. And this Houston team, guys, is just impressive every year. We remember they did make the finals last year. Like what Joker said, Kelvin Sampson, he knows how to coach in the tournament, but the one thing he is missing is a championship, and that's what he's looking for here. Houston coming in with the number 13 offense in the nation, the number 6 defense in the nation. They are 10-6 in quad 1 wins, and they went 14-4 in the Big 12 gauntlet. That is not too shabby. Probably Big 12, probably the toughest conference in the nation. So extremely impressive from them. Texas A&M, we kind of talked about them, how they started the season very well. They get into their conference play. I think they start 9-0 or 9-1, and everyone's talking about this buckyball, how fast-paced they're playing. Then they run into Alabama, who beats them. It's like 98-94, something close, some close game like that. Super high scoring, but super fast-paced, like lightning speed pace. There was just no defense to be had here. And guys, I can't see, and I thought St. Mary's had Texas A&M playing at the pace that they wanted. That was the game that St. Mary's wanted. But the thing is, you can't turn the ball over 18 times. Houston's not going to make these types of unforced errors. And they're going to come in the number 6 defense in the nation. This fast-paced buckyball is not going to be able to survive against Texas A&M. Against Houston. The Texas A&M fast-paced basketball is not going to be able to survive against this Houston defense. They're going to slow down Texas A&M, and their offense is going to be able to put up a ton of points as well. Texas A&M doesn't have the defense to stop Houston either. I'm gonna pick Houston here. I think Houston wins this game by 8 points. I think it's a little bit close, but I don't think there's ever really a sweat it out moment for Houston. So give me Houston by 8. Joker, where are you going?
Yeah, I mean, you said it perfect. I mean, a Kelvin Sampson coach team in March, athletic, can knock down shots. Kingston Fleming's one of the best freshmen in the country, will be a top 5 pick in June in the NBA draft. JoJo Tugler, Chris Sinak, great rebounding team. Again, Kelvin Sampson, coach team. Everything leads you to believe that Houston will win this game. They are the more athletic team. They will control the pace. They will be the better team. But inject buckyball into my veins. Give me Texas A&M to pull off the upset as the 10 seed. Inject it into my veins. You heard it here first. I think A&M wins this game. People are going to call me nuts. People are going to say I have no idea what I'm talking about. Buckyball is for real. Pop Isaacs on Kingston Fleming's all game. Rashawn A.G. played a fantastic game today. Would love to see him bang against JoJo Tugler in the post. I think A&M can push the pace on Houston and get the upset. I love the way they're playing. They're playing well coming into March. They had a great, gritty win tonight, forced 18 turnovers. Are they going to get Houston to commit 18 turnovers? Probably not. But are they going to get 5? Yes. Will they get 10? Likely. I think it will be enough. A&M in a tightly contested game by 4. Give it to me. A&M over Houston. You heard it here first.
All right, that would be a huge upset. Let's move on to the next game. Next game, we have the number 1 seeded Michigan Wolverines taking on the number 9 seeded St. Louis Billikens. Both teams able to score 100 points plus in their first round games. Michigan with a 101-80 win over Howard, and St. Louis getting a 102-77 win over Georgia. Not really much to say about the Michigan game against Howard. They shot almost 70% from the field. Obviously, they looked really good. The Howard defense was just totally outmatched by this high-powered Michigan offense. Great game to definitely get into it and get going. Howard really not a lot of answers there. The St. Louis game, and we picked Georgia in this game. I thought the athleticism of Georgia was going to be able to match St. Louis and their pace of play, but this St. Louis team, I'm really impressed with, guys. I mean, now we have 2 A-10 teams making it out within VCU and St. Louis. And St. Louis shooting 58% from the field and 32% from three-point range against Georgia. And another disappointing loss from Georgia. And it's something that I think we got to be aware of here. This team doesn't perform that well in the tournament. So we gotta really note that looking at the tournament in the next few years. But again, another mid-major taking out a Power 4 conference school, and this is starting to speak volumes here. It's not, and these aren't just we won at a buzzer. Now we're getting a 102-77 just drumming of Georgia. So St. Louis now taking on Michigan. We'll talk about that matchup in a second. Joker, did you see anything in these 2 games?
I love what I saw from Michigan. Obviously, I think they're the best team in college basketball. I mean, Moore put up a good fight. They really did. But Michigan showed why they've been consistent all year long. Knocking out the 3. I think Yaxel Lendenborg was a great get for them in the portal. They're playing well. Dusty May's got them firing all cylinders. They're going to be a tough out. Now, watching that St. Louis-Georgia game, yeah, I mean, to echo your point, Georgia, again, coming out flat. St. Louis just riding high into the tournament. I like St. Louis here tonight. I did not see them just running Georgia out of the gym. I mean, they were making shot after shot after shot, and obviously a fan favorite, Robbie Avila, and his goggles pulling up from the parking lot, to put them up at 27 at one point. You got to like what St. Louis is doing. It's going to be a great matchup against Michigan.
Yeah, and let's take a look at this matchup. We have Michigan taking on St. Louis. Michigan, the number 5 offense in the nation, the number 3 defense in the nation. They are 16-3 in quad 1 games, 19-1 in the Big Ten Conference, 32-3 overall. This is just an extremely impressive year for Michigan. I think it's going to take a very tough team to take them out, or maybe a very bad day for Michigan. I don't see much resistance being provided from St. Louis here. For me, I feel like it's going to be 10 to 15 points here, 10 to 15 point win for Michigan. And we talked about this when we first were talking about the St. Louis and Georgia matchup. This St. Louis team, this is going to be the best team they've played by a lot, like not even close. They were able to get a 1-point win over Santa Clara, lost by 1 to Stanford, beat San Francisco by 10. Like, these are some of those quad 1, quad 2 matchups, but this is just going to be a different caliber. It's going to be a different pace, a different type of athleticism that this St. Louis team has seen. Now, if they're able to shoot the way they were tonight, maybe they're going to have a fighting chance. And honestly, any team, if you're tied up or down 3 with like 5 minutes to go, it might be anyone's game. But I think this Michigan team is going to take care of business here. I think it's going to be over early. Michigan probably with a 10-point lead at half. They're going to win by 15. Joker, where are you going with this game?
Yeah, I like Michigan here. I think they're just going to overpower St. Louis. I mean, obviously, St. Louis is not going to get the open looks they got against Georgia. It almost was like Georgia just kind of turned off. It wasn't having any perimeter defense tonight. I mean, a lot of those looks for St. Louis were wide open looks, and they're knocking them down. You're not getting those against Michigan. I mean, Lendenborg out there, Roddy Gale off the bench, Burnett, they're guarding the perimeter. St. Louis is just not going to get those open looks, and I think I think Michigan's going to get whatever they want inside with Mara, even Cheddar off the bench. I think he's potentially going to have a big game too. Spelling Mara, I think Lendenborg is going to get what he needs. I like Michigan here, big. I'm going by 20.
All right, let's move on to the next game. And our final game on the board is the number 3 seeded Gonzaga Bulldogs taking on the number 11 seeded Texas Longhorns. Texas able to get through a tough-fought 79-71 win over the BYU Cougars, and really impressive for Texas to come off that win. Obviously, we talked about BYU. They've been struggling and stumbling down the stretch. They lost Saunders, one of their best guards, and you really did feel like that offense just kind of be stagnant at times. Obviously, you got AJ DeBansa, one of the best players in the nation, the lead scorer in the nation. He was able to put on a show. I believe it was like 35 points, 10 rebounds. So good performance from him, but not enough to get through this fired up Texas team. They take on Gonzaga, and Gonzaga, the last game to finish tonight, they were able to beat Kennesaw State 73-64, and this was a very ugly game from both teams. Just not overly impressive with the offense. Yes, Gonzaga survived by 9 points, and honestly, this is something that Gonzaga's been doing all year. They've been able to just kind of win some of these uglier games, and seeing a game like this, you would definitely pick Gonzaga to win it because it just was not a great offensive performance by Gonzaga. They shot 40% from the field, 17% from three-point range, and not sure I would really credit the Kennesaw defense for that. Kennesaw, on the other hand, 36% from the field, 18% from three-point range, so nobody really connecting from downtown at all in this game. And honestly, I really do feel like we'll talk about the matchup in a second before I get into it. But Joker, did you see anything in these two games?
Yeah, I mean, credit to Kennesaw for sticking in there tough. Looking at a big spread before that game, did Gonzaga look past them? Potentially. If I'm Gonzaga, fundamental things they do well, defend, shoot the three, defend the perimeter. Those are all going to be keys against Texas. Just skipping to the Texas game for a second, BYU flashy on offense, like you mentioned. I think the Richie Saunders loss earlier this year to the ACL really kind of derailed any hope they had of going deep. DeBance obviously is going to be probably top 2 pick in the NBA draft. I love Robert Wright, the third as a point guard, but with their limitations on defense, which to me is just shocking with how athletic that team is. Texas was the right side tonight to spring the upset. So I'm looking forward to this Texas-Gonzaga game. It should be a good one.
Ooh, sorry. Yeah, so let's dive into the Gonzaga-Texas game, and this is going to be a very interesting matchup here. The one thing that we want to look out for, and me and Joker were talking about this off the podcast, Texas playing their third game in about 5 days. They don't have that deep of a bench, so we got to keep an eye out for potential fatigue coming from some of these guys. Obviously, both games, NC State coming down to the last shot, and then this BYU game, basically the starters played almost the entire game as well. So very interesting to see if they're going to be able to match up against this Gonzaga team. Now, Gonzaga hasn't looked great ever since they lost Braden Huff on offense. They just haven't been able to score that many points, and I think it's going to take a lot. They got to be cleaner from the 3-point range against Texas. Texas is not a great 3-point defense. Gonzaga is 171st in the nation in shooting threes, shooting a little bit over 34% from 3. So if they can get to that range, it might make it a tough game. Gonzaga coming in with the 37th ranked offense, the 10th defense. They are 7-2 in quad 1 games. But guys, I just think this is a tough team, and Gonzaga, they haven't faced an athletic, high-scoring team like this. I'm looking at their schedule maybe since, I would say, Kentucky, maybe Michigan. And that was in December, in the beginning of December and November. So now they're gonna have to match the offense of Texas. And for me, I don't think they're gonna be able to do it. I'm picking Texas. Maybe they come out, maybe they're a little bit tired, but I'm picking Texas to kind of push through this game and get a nice win over the number 3 seeded Gonzaga. I'll say Texas wins by 6. Joker, where are you going?
Yeah, I'm going to echo that sentiment. I'm going to take Texas as well here. I think, even though this will be their third game in 5 days, the backcourt of Texas with Jordan Pope, Tremont Mark, both veteran guys. I love a good veteran backcourt. I think they will be huge to Texas' success. Finding Bocatitis on the inside. Dalen Swain, obviously, I think that best player on Texas, if he can get on the inside, maybe get Ncaa in foul trouble early, I think that might be a path to victory for Texas there. Texas does shoot the 3 a little bit better than Gonzaga, in my opinion, but I think the X factor in this game is going to be Kendall Weaver for Texas. Looking at the last game, he was all over the court, rebounding, just putting in that grit on defense. I would say an unheralded, almost a hero on that team, MVP on the defensive side. I think he's going to be really key to stopping Ncaa and even Tyron Grant Foster. I think Texas gets it done too as the 11th seed. I feel like there's always a sneaky 11, first 4 kind of getting in, advancing to the weekend. And I think Texas gets it done here. I think Texas by, I would say, at least 4.
Yeah, and obviously a really good coaching battle as well with 2 guys that have had a lot of success in the NCAA tournament. All right, we're going to go to our last remarks here. All right, guys, and our last remarks, while I got Joker here, I want to kind of get his vision of the whole tournament, but also we have some great games coming up tomorrow, on Friday, another slate of first-round games. Joker, do you see any upsets tomorrow? Obviously, we know it's going to be there's a lot of straightforward games, I think, coming up, but do you see any upsets tomorrow?
One that I have circled on my list of games for tomorrow is Akron over Texas Tech. I think everyone's kind of underestimating the loss of JT Toppin. I mean, he was really the cog of that team. I think Akron's got a great shot as a 12 seed to pull that upset. So that's one I've really got circled on my sheet. Also, if I just look down the board, I do like UCF to take out UCLA tomorrow night. UCF played some amazing basketball this year. They're a great shooting team, fun to watch. UCLA's also come on strong late, but give me the Knights over Mick Cronin in that one as well.
Yeah, and if you guys remember, I did have Texas Tech. I think they're going to win a close one against Akron. I'm a little bit iffy here because the Christian Anderson injury, that's going to make kind of a big difference for Texas Tech if he's in or not. And for the UCLA-UCF pick, I switched. I had UCF at first. Then I got news that Donovan Dent's going to be back in. And to me, that changes it. I think he's going to be able to kind of name his number against the UCF defense. So I think he's going to be able to do what he wants with that defense. Joker, one last thing that I want to talk about here is the finals and winner of the tournament. Hopefully, we've been through one day. Hopefully your final and your winner is still alive. Who do you have playing in the finals, and who do you have winning this whole thing?
So luckily my Final Four is intact. I just kind of want to highlight my final and champion. So coming out of the West, I have the Purdue Boilermakers upsetting Arizona to make it to the Final Four. And then I have those same Purdue Boilermakers exacting a little bit of revenge again on the Michigan Wolverines and advancing to the finals. Now on the other side, I'm just going to make this clear. I am a UConn homer. I do have UConn winning the title again. This will be number 3 in the last 4 years. I think this UConn team, while some may say not as talented as the previous champions, they have one of the best backcourts in the country, in my opinion. Braylon Mullins is one of the best freshmen, knockdown shooter. Terrace Reed in the middle, playing well, and obviously cannot discount having Alex Caravan back for his senior season, leading this team, Mr. Clutch Shot, grabbing the rebounds in a timely manner. And then you have Dan Hurley. While he is a little bit of a psycho, he is unhinged. You never know what you're going to get with Dan Hurley. You know you're going to get championship-level coaching. UConn Huskies over the Boilermakers. That's my prediction for this year.
Yeah, this UConn Husky team definitely going to be a team to be reckoned with. Obviously, they're extremely pissed off from that 72-52 loss to St. John's. But yes, like Joker said, Caravan, Mullins, Reed, just a very dominant. It's going to take a very talented team to beat them. Guys, I kind of hinted at I like UCLA maybe to challenge them and push them a little bit. We'll see how that goes. I don't want to get in the debate with Joker, but I do have Michigan winning in mind. I think they get their revenge from the Big Ten game, but we'll have to see how everything plays out. Joker, thanks so much for being on. It's been great having you. Hopefully we can get you back. And you got any last words for us?
Yeah, no, I just want to say thanks for having me. This has been great. I hope everyone enjoys the tournament. We say it every year. This is the best tournament, that we've seen. But I really think that this year is special. It's wide open. You have a lot of teams who played some great basketball this year. And, the final words I'll leave for this episode, go Huskies.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Share the video. Share your picks in the comments. And we'll see you in the next video.